Is it better to be feared or respected? Hello, everybody. In this video, I'm going to kind of be talking about the different types of leadership styles and which ones um, I think are the most effective in different types of situations, what they are, and basically like specific details and or characteristics of and consequences of these different types of leadership styles, right? Now, first, let me begin by saying that I think we all know about the three major types of leadership styles that they teach about in schools, which is the autocratic or the autocracy, which is like the authoritarian, right? Like Hitler, for example. The democratic, which is like everybody can, participate. And the leader is not so much like a leader as they are a facilitator, right? And then there's the laissez-faire, which in this case it says it focuses mostly on delegating many tasks to team members, right? So it's kind of like you do these things for me, right? And I'm just going to kind of like again guide, right? Like you're not really a leader in terms of a leader. See, I saw this picture a long time ago where they say that a leader, and this is an idea from the general public, I know, but I found it to be interesting where they ask, where should a leader be? Should a leader be in the front, right? Like if they go to battle or if they're guiding their team towards an objective, right? Like let's think in business. Should the leader be at the forefront, leading the team, right? Because if you think about it in battle, if the leader is in the front, I think the likelihood that he will get killed or she will get killed increases, right? Or should the leader be in the back, right? Basically being carried by the and defended by the mass, right? By the people. Now we're going to be talking about the people because the people, the followers, the subjects, or the subordinates are key, right? It's like the little prince. Like you can't be a king, you can't be a leader if you don't have people to follow you, right? If you don't have people to lead, even. Okay, well, answering the question, the simple answer to the question, is it better to be feared or respected? I say both, right? It's a complex combination. Now, I asked ChatGPT for some examples here, and he came up with, or it came up with Julius Caesar, which I think kind of like, I don't remember the other guy, but there are these figures. I think it was Winston Churchill. There are these figures that have been great leaders, right? They have shown strength in specific areas, right? Like I imagine Winston Churchill during World War II or Julius Caesar, but then they have shown weakness in other areas, right? Like I think Winston Churchill is controversial because of his imperialistic perspectives and views and takes on the world. And Julius Caesar, I mean, he was ultimately assassinated at the end, he was killed. So I don't think those are good examples of that combination between being feared and respected. I think the combination talks more in terms of like Carl Jung, right? And the shadow integration, right? The shadow integration being represented by the fear element, right? People need to know you're serious, right? And maybe you don't have to do what they think you're gonna do, right? And maybe you don't even have to threaten them, but they need to know you're serious. They need to see your teeth. They need to know you mean business when you mean business. They need to know you're serious, right? And I would say just a little bit, just fear is a powerful thing. It's very potent. So you don't need a lot of it, right? You don't need to be like a Hitler or a Stalin. You just need a little dose, right? A little tiny dose, just a hint, right? Very subtle. And and people will catch on to that immediately, right? Because fear is the first emotion. Fear is the primitive emotion, right? In humans. Um, and then you can do all this other ordeal, which has to do with being honored, being respected, you know, basically cultivating trust among your people, right? But then there's another notion, well, actually, two notions, which is what about being loved or hated, right? Think about people that are loved, right? Like, I'm going to be giving some examples of this in a moment, but do they make great leaders? I think that's ultimately what you would strive for. You wouldn't really strive to be feared or respected. You would actually strive to be loved. Like, just imagine if you were a leader that was loved by your people or by all people. How easy it would be for you to get along with them, to reciprocate, to lead them, to guide them, right? You wouldn't have to worry about loyalty, trust. You wouldn't have to worry about them honoring your word. You wouldn't have to worry about, them betraying you, right? Basically, loyalty. But what if they hated you? Would you like to be a leader that has, uh, you know, would you like to be someone whose followers hate, right? Um, because that could come in handy too. If the people hate you, they'll probably do things out of hate, right? And you could say, well, I send them off to war, and they fight like no other army, right? But it's kind of like, like we're gonna get into those specifics, but that's not sustainable long term, right? So I asked ChatGPT, and well, no, I'm gonna get into that in a moment. For me, I think it depends on the followers, right? And this is where I'm gonna get into the followers take, because I think we get caught up in trying to determine a good leader and a bad leader or whatever, fear or respect, and we miss the point, right? The point are the people. You're going to be guiding people, and what's more important than guiding the people is the personality of that mass of people, right? Which we all know any type of mass is made up of different types of personalities, right? Different types of individuals. So if you want to go and check out my video, excuse me, on analyzing good, in my video on analyzing good, I make this graph where I have like 4 columns of good to determine what good is, like beneficial for me, beneficial for you, or if it's a short-term gain or a long-term gain, right? And all of those, how they interact with each other. And I thought about making something like this. Maybe I'll do it in the future. I haven't done it yet because I just thought about it today. Well, yesterday. But basically this has to deal, okay, I'm going to try to like break it down like this. Soft followers and tough followers, right? Soft followers would be the type of people that would basically like be considered weak, right? In a group. They're kind of like the sheep, right? They don't really have a temperament. They don't have a, what do they call it? A spine, right? They're kind of spineless. They're kind of NPCs. They're copies of the rest of the people, right? They just mimic, they follow. They're followers like in every sense of the word. And then you have tough followers, right? Which in this case, for me, these are the type of people that have the potential to become the leaders of tomorrow. Because ultimately you can ask yourself, where do leaders come from? Leaders come from the mass. Leaders come from a family. Leaders come from communities, right? And there are people in those communities, in those families, in those groups, in those masses with the potential to be leaders, the leaders of tomorrow, right? And so on. That perpetuates until humanity ceases to exist, right? So there are subordinates. Let's categorize it like this. Here's another other 2 words. These are subordinates that are that initiate, right? The people that initiate are the tough ones, right? And they're initiators. I see this a lot with, for example, with students, right? You have different types of students. If you're a teacher, you have students that will answer your question right away, and they kind of have that attitude of like being, not really instigating, but having initiative, right? They have initiative. They're more autonomous. they're more independent, they're more industrious, right? They're more responsible, they're more committed, all of these good qualities. Of course, that can lead to like anxious problems, anxiety, depression, all these type of other ordeals. But then you have other type of people, right, which are mere followers. They'll look to these few, right, in a classroom, for example. And I don't know why that is. That dynamic maybe has to do something with the 2080 principle. But the leaders or the people with leader potential are usually a few. They are usually like, usually, not always, because you can have a whole group full of people with high initiative, or low initiative, whatever. But usually it's like one or two or three people, and the rest are, followers. They're kind of like sheep. Um, so what a graph of this would look like is like considering these type of people with the leaders, right? Because I think ultimately what's going to determine whether you should be feared or respected is going to depend on the type of followers you have, right? Let's say you have followers that are very easygoing, right? Or you're a leader of a country that's like super chill, right? These people don't like to, these people don't like conflict. They like to take it easy, right? And we can say it depends because they may want a strong leader or they may want a leader that's like weak, right? And I'm not saying that being respected makes you weak, right? But I don't know, that maybe they can love, right? Or if it's a nation that's like very, and I think it's harder to discern that nowadays because like the political landscape of modern society in 2024 is like, equality and everybody's the same, right? But that's not really true because like you have Russia or North Korea, right, where they want strong leaders. I think their people want strong leaders. I think Putin is president of Russia because his people support him, right? Or he has at least people that have a very tough personality, right? That have a lot of initiative that support him, right? At least you can't lead by yourself. Obviously, you need your team, your cabinet. Um, so yeah, consider that, right? So let's break it down a little bit. Initiators, which are the type of people in a group that have that potential to be leaders. Now they may exploit it, they may not, they may use it down the road, they may not. Um, but they have that personality. I would kind of make reference to type A personality versus type B. Type A being proactive, type B being reactive, right? Type A being active, type B being passive, right? So initiators, as your followers, if you're if you're a tough leader, let's say you're a leader that aims to be feared, your followers that are, how can I say it, that have that same temperament as you, that are initiators, that are disciplined, they're going to respect you. They're not going to fear you, because tough people respect tough people. You know what I mean? Or in the case that it gets like very abusive, let's say like the leader is a complete tyrant, you know, and he's dealing with a group of people that are very, that have a lot of initiative, that are very disciplined. Ultimately, they're gonna end up hating him. They're not gonna fear him or her. They're gonna hate that person because of the personality of the group, right? Or the personality of those followers. Now, let's look at it from the other perspective. Um, if you have followers that are, kind of soft, kind of type B, and they see a leader that is very tough, that aims for fear, they're obviously gonna fear him, right? They're gonna be like, "What the hell is this guy doing?" Right? He's scaring me, right? Um, but then there's really no way that a leader that wants to be feared can lead people that are very soft, right? That don't really have initiative. Because I think those type of people, the real followers, will either fear the tough leader, or if it's not a tough leader, let's say it's a leader that aims for respect, then they're going to end up like not understanding the person. I think those people, it's very hard to get them to love, respect, or I mean, fear is easy. They'll express fear easily, but it's really hard for them to respect someone, because respect demands discipline, commitment, honor, right? Qualities that those type of people in the mass don't really have, or in the group, they lack that. So they're gonna second guess the leader. If they don't fear that leader, they're gonna not understand that leader. They're gonna second guess him, and they're gonna doubt him forever, right? And not because they doubt the leader, but because they doubt themselves, right? I think it's a notion of, or it's a characteristic of these type of people that will constantly second guess everything they do. They constantly don't understand things, right? They're not paying attention. They doubt themselves. They doubt other people, right? They got to double, triple check things, and even then, they're not convinced, right? So yeah, I think that would be really hard. Um, or they could end up loving a leader, but I don't know how this leader would have to be. I think it may be a leader that aims to love, and I'm going to give an example of one in a moment. But this type of leader would either have to be like a type B leader, which I don't think would have to aim for respect or fear, but rather love, right? And they may even have to be a performer of some sort, right? Kind of like a clown, like kind of attractive, right? A person that's like charismatic, that's very witty, right? Even if they don't do anything and they lack complete commitment and action, and wise decision making, as long as they entertain that crowd, right? That type B crowd, the sheep, the real followers, that leader will be okay, right? Now, I think I'm missing one, which is the leader that is feared will either be respected by the type A people, right? Or, yeah, I already mentioned that. Or he or she will be hated or despised. Oh, yeah. And the leader that aims to be respected from the type A people in a group, from the people that have initiative, I think, I'm not sure if they would show loyalty to a person like that, because we do have really tough people in a crowd that will look at a leader that's aiming to be respected or loved, and they're just gonna view that person as weak, right? They're just gonna say like, you're just weak, shut up, right? Like, you're not my leader. You have no spine, basically, right? Now, a leader that aims to be respected, I think it's like, how do you impose that respect? Like I mentioned before, with a little dose of fear, right? Ultimately, I think you can talk about respect without talking about fear, right? At least in a subtle way. So I think that's kind of mixed there. This video should actually be called Fear and Respect versus Being Loved, right? Or being fear and respected versus being loved, right? And being hated is just like, that's a no-brainer. That's not going to get you anywhere. So yeah, I see this because, I have like some students where they'll show that initiative, but then there'll be other ones that will just kind of copy the same thing, right? As the initiative, or as the initiators already demonstrated, right? As they demonstrated how it should be done, basically. So I'm going to get into this notion right now of also people that fear strong leaders can be undisciplined. And this can be seen with people that get distracted easily, as in, unless they have an authority figure in front of them we lose them. For example, in online communication. So again, we get back to this notion of in the group, you have people in the world that will say it's hard for them to focus. And I think I made a video on that already on why it's hard to focus. But I just got this notion in a dialogue with a student earlier, which basically says that people get distracted easily, at least on in online meetings, for example, because they get distracted easily, and it's hard for them to focus because they can just shut off the camera, shut off the microphone, and be doing something else, be on their phone, be working on some other thing, right? And they don't pay attention because they lack that discipline, right? Now, someone that's committed will still be making an effort to understand what is being said, right? Even if they don't have someone breathing over their shoulder, right? And I guess that's why they say, like, it's harder for you to get distracted when you have the person in front of you, because if you take out your phone, or if you go lay down on the couch or something, the person's gonna see that, they're gonna be like, what the hell, right? And they're gonna get angry, or they're gonna be like, what's wrong with you, right? So it's harder to do that. But it's almost like they're kids, you see. They need to have like a father or a mother. They need to have a parent or an authority figure that's demanding them, because they still lack that self-discipline. So this leads me to the conclusion that people that don't pay attention lack self-discipline. Ultimately, that's what it's about. Because if you have that self-discipline, you're able to say, like, oh yes, I just thought about this other thing, I need to attend or tend to this other thing, right? I got this idea or whatever. But they're able to kind of push that off, or maybe say, just hold on a minute, I need to take this call, or I need to send this message or something, right? Like, they're disciplined enough, committed, responsible enough to be able to do that, right? And again, we end up with this notion of two different types of personalities, right? And I think here specifically developing the skill of self-discipline, right? How do you develop self-discipline? We don't in our society. There's just some people that are self-disciplined and some people that are not. There are some people that are good at paying attention and don't get distracted as easily, and there are other people that don't. They get distracted easily. It's hard for them to focus, right? Because you need that self-discipline, right? And you need to develop it. How do you develop it? I would say you develop it by forcing yourself. I mean, it's discipline. So when we talk about discipline, ultimately we're talking about by force, right? You force yourself to ignore the other things and just focus on one thing, right? If you're listening to one person, just listen to one person. If you're watching a video, just watch the video. I have trouble with this myself, because I'll be watching a video and then I'll tend to like grab my phone, and it's like, and then I'll have to rewind the video. But that's my punishment. It's like, you missed those 10 seconds because you were distracted by your phone. Now put your phone down and rewind the video 10 seconds so you're able to continue with the thought process from the video, right? That's discipline. That's how you practice self-discipline in many different types of small ways like that. So this, I think, ultimately answers the question in part of why it is easy to get distracted and hard to focus or pay attention, right? Okay, and returning a little bit back to the idea of being a leader that is feared or respected, I think, and I've been doing this lately with, like, for example, the rites of passage video that I've made. I think I've made 2 videos on that, because I'm really interested in the rites of passage. These acts of initiation, like, there's like ceremoniously elaborate and everything, but I'm talking about maybe even from putting on a uniform to, brushing your teeth and putting on your pajamas to go to sleep, right? Like, those little acts of initiation get you to do the thing, right? Or whatever it is, the activity that you're going to be doing up next. So here I want to kind of bring this also into other walks of life. Like, for example, think about the small leads you have with your friends and family, right? Like, there are moments, because Carl Jung said it in his archetypes, there are archetypes that we all play. There are roles, there are masks There are roles, like an actor plays a role that you play in life, right? There are moments when you'll have to be the leader, right, of your friends. You'll have to be the group leader. You'll have to be the leader in your family. You'll have to lead your family through some crisis, or through some decision, right? You'll have to provide your input. And in those moments, it's also important to question yourself, right? Do I want to be respected? Do I want to be feared? Do I want to be loved? Right? Which ultimately go back to the notion of your values, right? Your motivations, your interests, but also taking into consideration the people you have there, right? I would say, if it's like the archetypal grandfather, the tough grandfather, you may want to show him, like a strong spine, like a strong temperament, right? So that person can respect you. But if it's like your grandma, you're not going to be showing your grandma a tough behavior or tough attitude, right? You're probably going to want to be more like respected, or maybe even loved, right? It's your grandma. And these are the archetypal, of course, the archetypal grandfather and grandmother, right? Those are just bad examples. But okay, leading yourself, right? You are your own leader. If you think about yourself as two people, right? Especially with the discipline thing, it's like, would you rather be a leader for yourself that is respected, feared, loved, or hated? Are you currently a leader for yourself that is respected, feared, loved, or hated? Right? Many of you may say, well, I hate myself. I'm a leader that hates himself or herself, right? And I mean, just think about that. That's not going to be sustainable long term. That's not efficient. That's not effective. So you may want to reconsider that, and maybe say, well, if I'm lacking in these areas of my life, as in doing exercise, eating healthy, or whatever, well, maybe there I need to implement a leader that is going to be feared, right? Or, maybe loved, right? I know most people would say, well, why can't you be a leader for yourself that shows love? Yes, but love also ends up getting you into lazy territory, comfortable territory, right? So if you're talking about discipline, you wouldn't really be talking about love, right? I mean, you would be doing it for love, but you don't need love in the process. You need, fear, respect, right? And you could ask, like, how do I do that with myself? You just do it, right? Because you can't really threaten yourself. You can't say, like, if you don't work out today, I'm gonna like spank you, or you're gonna be grounded, or what. Like, you're not gonna punish yourself, but you're gonna punish yourself in other ways, right? You're gonna feel guilty, you're gonna feel resentful, you're gonna feel bad, sad, angry, depressed, right? So I guess, like, unwillingly or unconsciously, you do end up punishing yourself, right? So yeah, think about that. I think in these terms, the best would be respect with a little dose of fear, right? And that fear can come from knowing there are consequences, right? Whether you set them up yourself or life just provides them for you, right? So yeah, in this case, this is the notion of, like, if you hate yourself, are you bullying yourself, right? And everything has its advantages and disadvantages, right? So even if you bully yourself, are you bullying yourself unnecessarily, right? With no objective, with no point in mind, or are you bullying yourself towards like towards a better you, right? So to say. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into the ChatGPT thing. I asked ChatGPT about all this. Is it better to be feared or respected? And well, ChatGPT, just like anybody would, I think they would probably say it depends, and ChatGPT was like, it can vary. If people fear you, he says the advantages are that you will have control, and there's deterrence. Deterrence, I think, is you will demotivate people or dissuade them, right? Like, basically get them not to betray you, get them not to challenge you, right? So because they fear you, they're not going to even dare to try to challenge you, right? And you control. But the disadvantage is that you create resentment, and there's really no loyalty, right? There's no loyalty free willingly. They're not going to give you loyalty free willingly, right? Because they hate you, right? Because they fear you. Whereas being respected has the pros or the advantages of creating loyalty. And I was kind of like, really? But okay, I guess. Um, Collaboration. So collaboration, kind of like the democratic or this other leadership style, where like everybody's kind of collaborating. It's a happy-go-lucky community, right? The leader is like the same as everybody else. I'm just here as a spokesperson, as the face of the movement or the cause or the community or whatever, and it's sustainable. So, which I would kind of say I'm not really sure, because there's always competition. There's people that will try to take that away from you. I'm thinking a lot of Game of Thrones because I've been watching that series lately, and yeah, I'm thinking in terms of that, right? People plotting against you, schemes, things like this. But the disadvantages are that you are perceived as weak, right? Which is this idea of like, people can plot against you and overthrow you. And there's slow decision making. So I see this currently because I'm watching Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And when people are at war in these series, the people that are like the strategists, the diplomats, they want to take things slow. They want to talk about alliances, and they're not wrong. You do need alliances. You can't just go around fighting everybody because they're going to end up killing you, right? You're going to end up losing the Game of Thrones. So, but ultimately, what that does is that reduces the speed at which you do things significantly, because then you're not doing anything. You're just sitting around talking and thinking about what to do, right? And talking to other people about alliances instead of doing something. And you're standing by doing all that. While you're standing by doing all that, your opponent gets the upper hand on you because they acted, right? So it's kind of like, when do we need to stop talking and actually do things, right? And leaders that are respected have the disadvantage that they're slow at decision making, right? Okay, and just to kind of finish off this video, I want to talk about Machiavelli and Sun Tzu. Well, we know about both of them, and ChatGPT let me know about them, and I thought it was pretty interesting, where we have the two perspectives right there. We have Machiavelli with The Prince, where he talks about it is better to be feared, right? If you guys know, it's like Machiavelli has this notion of like, just be very pragmatic, destroy, annihilate your enemy, right? And it's better to be feared, right? That's just the practical way of going about it. And then Sun Tzu in The Art of War is a little bit more, and I've read both books a long time ago, so I don't really remember them, but I think I like Machiavelli a little better. I think that's more of my style. I read Machiavelli, The Prince, a long time ago. And about a couple years ago, probably like 10 years ago. And Sun Tzu, The Art of War, I probably read it like 4 years ago. I think I still have it. And Sun Tzu's book, I thought was pretty. I mean, a lot of people talk about The Art of War, but I thought it was pretty boring. I mean, there was only one thing I learned from that, which was think about the battle before the battle and only engage in the battle if you've already won the battle, hypothetically. If you haven't or you don't, then don't engage, right? I think that's the only thing. Beyond that, everything else is just kind of like pretty obvious, right? For 2020 or 2024, where it's like, just don't attack if you don't have the numbers and things like that. So Sun Tzu prefers leaders that aim to be respected because, again, of this long-term sustainable, notion. And I would say, yeah, sure, that's fine, but with a little bit of fear and very safely guarded, right? It's very, very well protected. Like, never put your guard down, right? Basically. All right. And finally, examples of leaders that have been feared, respected, and loved. I'm going to talk about 3 of them. Feared, which one do you think it is? Well, of course, Hitler, right? Hitler was a leader. I mean, there are other ones that ChatGPT gave me, like Joseph Stalin, but Hitler, I think, is the most popular one. It's like, people now will talk about Hitler as if he's like the devil, right? Yeah, like when people say, if you could go back in time and like kill a Hitler or something like that, or what if a Hitler was being born and that baby died, but it was like a future Hitler, right? Kind of like the Antichrist. So yeah, he was a leader that was feared. He killed a lot of people, and yeah, he didn't aim to be respected or loved. Now, a leader that aimed to be respected, I think, was Gandhi. Gandhi was an Indian leader who didn't use fear at all. He actually advocated against aggression, against violence, right? But he was a leader. He was very active, right? But he was able to get the people to not fear him. I wouldn't really say love him, but respect him, right? Like just kind of that balance right there. And then a leader that has been loved, ChatGPT gave me like Princess Diana, and I don't really know much about her, but I do know that she was popular, and also John F. Kennedy, right? And I think John F. Kennedy was loved because he represented a lot of things for a lot of different people, like hope. I think he was also respected by a lot of people, not everybody, but by a lot of people in how he handled the Cuban Missile Crisis with the Soviet Union. Um, I don't know to what extent he was respected, but we could say he was. No, no, sorry. I don't know. I don't know if he was feared. Actually, he was respected by some people because of what I just mentioned. Um, but more than that, he was loved. People loved him, right? Charismatic, good looking. So I think being loved is maybe the ultimate objective of a leader, but it's very hard to achieve that because you need to have like almost like celebrity status qualities, right? And I don't know if that will actually make you a good leader. If that will make you a good leader, I mean, John F. Kennedy showed that it could because he handled the Cuban Missile Crisis well. Um, but I'm not sure how often you find those traits in a person, right? Where they're, again, type A, but also type B. They can be feared, respected. They know how to make decisions. They're wise. They're young. They're good looking, right? It's like usually you're old and wise or you're young and foolish, right? So I'm not sure. But yeah, I just thought I'd talk about all this. Let me know what you think. And that's all I got for this one. So I'll see you in the next one, all right? Peace.